Okay. For those of you who are joining us either on YouTube or other places, welcome to this installment of the Aperitif concerts. We are really lucky today because this poet stayed up until 3 o'clock in the morning, um, where she is right now, to go ahead and work with us. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time introducing her, except to say that I come on here every week and I say, oh, we are so unbelievably blessed with the poets that Tesoro has. And I can't say she's one of our brighter lights because they all glow incandescently, but she brings a definite different angle, different flavor, different world to what it is that she does. So certainly without any further ado, I'm going to let her talk about herself a little bit and introduce herself. Kimberly, darling, how you doing?
I am good, blessed. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is, because as you mentioned, it's 3 a.m. right now, but it's always a blessing and an honor to be found in It's a Soil space, no matter what time it is. So I'm just glad to be here.
So give us a little bit of background.
I am Kimberly KMA Anderson. I just used to go by the name of KMA. My pen name used to be KMA. But I've gotten to a point where I've infused the two together. I'm a poet, a songwriter, a the list has gone quite long. Graphic designer, I'm a mom, proud mom. I think that's one of the biggest achievements for me at this point in life, because being a mom will humble you as a writer, because you think you're just in the groove of writing something and then your kids will come and disturb your whole train of thoughts. Um, so that's the best thing I feel like that's happened to me, is having kids, because they also open your mind to a lot of different things and writing about many things. So I am a historian by heart. I come from a very small town of Eshowe in KwaZulu-Natal here in South Africa. And coming from that small town, it's filled with so much history. And the love for that the richness of the history that our town has kind of found its way into my poetry.
So I'm going to start you off with a question that I ask everybody. Firstly, because I really want to know, and secondly, because I'm lazy. So, um, why poetry and why now?
I had no choice. I had I had no choice. I didn't choose poetry. If it were up to me, I would have probably chosen something else. But I didn't choose poetry. Poetry chose me. And whether I liked it or not, I being the person that I am, I could fade into the background and just enjoy listening to everyone else. I never wanted to be in the front line. I never wanted to perform. Um, until I started writing more and I started coming out of that shell and performed once or twice. And there were some amazing people, such as yourself. They were like, "Oh, okay, she should speak more." And that's what poetry did. Poetry gave me a voice that I never thought I could possibly have.
And as far as, why now? And you can interpret that any way you want to or need to.
Why now is because there's some things that need to be said. Um, there's many things that need to be written about that aren't written about, especially on my side of of town or of the world. Um, the things that we talk about when it comes to touchy topics of history. There's certain things within history, and being a person that loved history, there were certain things I was never taught. And when I started digging deep within history and what it's about, and not just South African history, but American history and Australian history, Asian history, I started to expand my thought process, my writing process. And I was like, okay, there's some things that definitely need to get said now. 2020, 2021, 2022 to now, a point I just want to share nonstop. Nonstop.
So, excuse me. You talked about, and I've had and heard other poets say this all the time. You didn't choose poetry; poetry chose you. Okay. So talk to me about that. I hesitate to use the word journey, but for lack of a better phrase, let's talk about that a little bit. As opposed to you setting out a career path for yourself,
Mhm.
how has this altered what you thought your life was going to be like?
I never in my wildest dreams had thought that poetry would be a healing tool, because that's what I started using it for initially. The first time was as a healing tool, because I did start writing way, way back. And I didn't take it too serious, because uh, everyone that I knew within poetry or within the poetry world back in high school were all nerds. I was already trying to hide that I was a chess nerd, so I was like, I'm not even gonna try and hide that I'm a poetry nerd, and so I stayed away from that. And when it came to a point of me becoming an adult and a mom, and finding out that I have this other identity to who I am. And what does it mean to be colored, or what does it mean to be a mixed race South African? And what does it, how do you handle anxiety? What do you do when you find that you're suffering with anxiety and depression? And I couldn't figure out how to say these verbally. I couldn't explain myself to anyone because I was suffering with anxiety attacks. So I found myself writing at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. While having an anxiety attack, I wrote about what an anxiety attack feels like. When I started writing as an adult, I started exploding like a gushing pipe that just got knocked by a pig, because everything just started coming up, things that I never spoke about when it came to my childhood. And it really just became like a therapeutic tool on how to deal with what was happening internally with me. I never in my wildest dreams had anticipated that I would go off and start writing about what it meant to finding my identity being colored, or the fact that I wasn't colored enough, or writing about mixed race history or African history. I never ever thought that would happen. I was just using it to release how I was feeling, because every time I wrote, I felt lighter. Um, and as a mom, I don't know about other moms, as a mom, you feel like you got to have the weight of everything on your shoulders. You can't really cry. That's how I was raised at some point. I couldn't cry. I was not entitled to a break. There was no breaks. So I had poetry, and that was just my thing. Even up to now, it's kind of still just my thing, even though my girls get stuck into some of my journals and they want to read uh, some of my stuff, but it's still just for me. And that was why I held on to it so much more, because I was like, oh, this is just mine. These are my words. And it was never for writing to or for anyone. But when I shared for the first time on Facebook and I had just one person say, I relate to this piece, I was like, okay, I like this. I'm gonna keep I'm gonna keep sharing. And it was difficult to share because of that thing of what are people gonna say? What are people gonna think? Wow, she's really messed up. You know, we thought she was fine, but oh boy, there's something wrong. But at the same time, the more I wrote, that's when KMA started coming out, and she was like, I don't care what anybody says. We're gonna say it.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about the book, which is brilliant, by the way. Um, I was telling one of my friends, and I think I told you, um, when your publisher sent me the beta copy of it to look at, I was having like this major eye inflammation going on. And it was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. But I started reading it. I took medication to make sure that I stayed awake and out of pain long enough to finish her book. It was that, I hate to use the word engaging because it's not strong enough. This book hit me on so many levels, and there was so much that I could connect with, not just as a woman, but as a woman of color. And so that made an enormous difference to the way that I was receiving it. Talk to us a little bit about the book and the effect that it's had on you and on other people.
Ooh. So the title of the book alone, just Do I Look African Enough? The the book was based off my life. So I had this struggle, and I was like, who wants to hear about the challenges that I went through? Again, I'm just a small town girl, farm girl that moved to this big city. I enjoy writing, but who wants to really hear about my challenges or my struggles that I've had to face and go through? And I took that for granted, because once I started sharing the first piece, which was A Colored Girl's Tale, that was the key to unlocking everything else. Because I feel like when you write about feelings and emotions, it's awesome. Yes, you can go deep into that when you're writing about nature and people. Yeah, but when you're writing about yourself, I feel like that's the most personal thing you're getting into. That's the most revealing thing where you like completely exposed. So when I wrote A Colored Girl's Tale, I wrote it in anger because I was at work and this guy came up to me and he started speaking Afrikaans. And for those that don't know, Afrikaans is supposedly supposed to be a language I'm supposed to speak as a colored person. But I don't come from the Cape, or I'm not originally from Johannesburg. I come from KwaZulu-Natal. First language on that side is either English or isiZulu. It's not Afrikaans. And he came up to me and he started speaking Afrikaans, and I spoke to him in English until the conversation got too deep and I couldn't understand what he was saying. And I was like, look, I don't understand what you're saying. And he gave me such a confused, mixed up with a disgusted look. And the first thing he said was, why? And I'm like, what do you mean, why? He's like, oh, but your people, and I've heard that on so many occasions, your people are supposed to speak like this. Your people are supposed to speak like that. Your people. And I'm like, what is this thing with your people? Because where I grew up, I grew up in a mixed community. I grew up with Black people, Indian people, colored people, not too many white people, but we grew up in a mixed race community. So I never faced the challenges that I faced when I moved out here to Johannesburg, and they started to annoy me. So that's when I wrote A Colored Girl's Tale, where I said I'm not white and neither am I Black, because being colored, I always say the best worst thing that happened to South Africa was apartheid. Why I say it's the best worst thing is because there were some things when it came to buy certain laws, when it came to the economy, that we could have taken from the apartheid regime, that we didn't take, that we could have learned from. And the worst thing was segregation, where they said, okay, we are going to mess around with white Black ladies, but at the same time, we're not going to be accountable for the babies that they have. So when there's too many of them, we're going to throw them one side and we can say, those are the colored kids. That's the Black area. That's the white area. That's the Indian area. And we're going to keep them all separated. And it made colored people be a people without identity, because they knew they're a mixture, but some didn't know where was the Black side, where was the white side, where was the Indian side. Some knew, some didn't know, which caused turmoil within them to be somewhat violent or seek for approval somewhere, somehow, which I understand more now. But the fact that when somebody sees me in South Africa, the first thing they always associated me was with drugs, alcohol, violence, and the list is endless. And I was like, oh, wow. Oh wow, I'm gonna write. That's it. Thank you. You're gonna feel my pen. I got angry. So from using poetry as a healing tool, poetry got used as a weapon. And it was my weapon of choice. It's still my weapon of choice up to this day, because there's still a lot of ignorance, not just on a local scale, but once I started broadening my horizons and sharing with more people, I started to find it on an international scale, there is still some ignorance, especially when I meet someone from Russia that says, my English is very advanced. I'm like, I fail to understand what that means. But it means that I need to write more, to educate more. So that
Okay.
was the journey of the book, was basically identity and education, because I want my kids that look totally, one is very fair, one is not too fair. One day I want them to pick that book up and say, okay, this is how mom dealt with racism. This is how she dealt with this. This is how she dealt with that. And this is what she spoke about when it came to gender-based violence and so on and so forth. And I want them to look back at that and say, okay, wow, she left us a little guideline on finding our own identity in this big, beautiful world.
Very cool. Okay, so as much as I would like to keep talking about this because it's fascinating and it's something that I quite honestly don't get enough of a chance to really talk about at length in depth. This is your time to shine. You have the next half hour to just make us, you know, make us more devoted to you than we already are. So, um, do you, boo?
So I'm going to be sharing some pieces, some new, some very old, because during this process, looking through some pieces, I'm looking through some stuff and I find stuff from back 2019 that didn't make it into the book. And some new stuff. I mean, like today, new. So I'm gonna get stuck into the old and then we're gonna come to the new. So we're gonna start off lightly as to where the love of poetry came about and the fun pieces. Oh, why I say they fun, because one of the first pieces is entitled When Poetry is in Your Veins. I don't just want to write poetry, but I want to become poetry. Not just read every line and make you hear poetry, but I want to feed you poetry. I'm talking about that Sunday lunch kind of poetry, brown gravy over white rice, roast chicken and potato salad till you blame poetry for your obesity. That's how much I'll know that you're actually listening to my poetry. I want to walk poetry, allow my short self to walk with pride due to poetry, hear a punchline in every step and avoid the beauty that grows through the cracks, because in my walk, I will forever celebrate poetry, allow it to boil over from the depths of my being and let poetry erupt like a volcano dormant but waiting for the right hour to spew out poetry, incinerating everything in its path, including self. I wanna die and be reborn as poetry. But because I don't believe in reincarnation, I guess the angels gotta be ready for my poetry. That is a really old piece. I don't really write like that much now, but I miss that. This next piece is where we get a little bit serious. This was basically my goodbye piece to anxiety and depression. I know a lot of people, when they go through therapy, they talk about how their therapist told them to write a letter to your younger self, to your older self, and all these amazing things. I never could ever find the time to go and sit and actually have a session. So poetry became my therapist. And this was my goodbye letter to the last time I ever had an anxiety attack, which was 2 years. This month marks 2 years ago. My last tear was a cry for peace. See, I found myself on my knees and praying for the feeling of release. I tried to call for peace, but I could not find it. I looked for love on the mountains and hoped that peace would be found with it. My last tear fell on blank pages that created gateways, made me see the world through every word that fell from my pen and left me exposed. It left me exposed to the reality that I am a woman who had pulled myself out of trenches so dark and deep, but prayed for there to be a light at the end of that tunnel. And in the past, a single tear was seen as my weakness, but now it is my strength, a tool of turning my pain into power above the noise my anxiety used to make. I have inherited my grandmother's peace and my mother's boldness, my aunt's teachable mind and my cousin's wisdom, and my last tear is not the last, but only the beginning, the proof that I will allow myself to heal and feel again and again and again. And yeah, that was that piece. Basically my goodbye piece to anxiety, to depression. And then we started getting serious. Now we started getting a bit serious about some stuff when I birthed a colored girl's tale. I'm not white and neither am I black. Even though my taste of men has always been darker than my fair skin, my eyes are brown and my hair curly but not straight, pushed between the two races, my face was the one that they created. My nose is too round and my ears are too pointy. The language I'm supposed to understand sounds so foreign to me, so I give off this blank look when Afrikaans is thrown at me, leaving them to try and add up the maths as to how, what, and why I am just your untypical color chick. And a swear word is the furthest thing in my dictionary, and straightening my hair seems to have gotten lost somewhere in history. I'm not a Masakan chick. I'm more like a Sawubona Gunjani type of chick. I'm not a colored girl on the edge. I'm more like the quiet one in the corner with my nose in a book, hoping to go unseen in case you might make that mistake and put me on your stereotypical plate. It's worse when they see me with my kids. That look of confusion tied up in all those unanswered questions, and just to show them I can hear their very thoughts, I always give them that smile, like you'll be okay. See, I don't even understand what I am, but I've learned to embrace my papa and tripe eating, brown eyes, bushy hair, round nose, Zulu speaking, Afrikaans rejecting self. And I love how my story has people puzzling for days. I've been called Mlungu, bushy, and koi. You see, I'm neither one of these things. I am a mixed race beauty. My ancestors got killed for looking like me. From village to village they came. On horses they rode, trying to get rid of what they called a crime, while some born the right color with the right hair strand got to pass the pencil test. A bonus was that they embraced the language that was forced upon them centuries later, and here I am. I'm not fitting in, but I'm proud to stand out. They say we have no culture, and I've never found that offensive, because unlike society, I think I can create my own. They say we walk around with stockings on our heads, have babies as teenagers from 2 or 3 baby daddies, never finish high school or go to university. Can you just stop putting me in all your colored girls are going to hit you with pots and pans box? I love hearing you talk about me in a taxi, or saying umuhle with hope of me not understanding. But what I cherish more is that look on your face after I reply, with that one question always asked, upumapi. I could go on to tell you about how I come from the small farming town in Zululand, how I stole sugarcane as a kid, ran around without any shoes, and have this brown dog follow me at all times without a leash. And I am not your typical colored chick. So that was that piece that caused a lot of drama. When I say a lot of drama, When we write poetry, sometimes we just think we write the best stuff. We don't anticipate that there's going to be some backlash from some people that feel some kind of way about it. And the same way, by my own people, I wasn't good enough or colored enough. Some of them came back to me and was like, why do you need to explain yourself to anyone? I was like, I'm not explaining myself to anyone. I'm explaining myself to me. I needed this piece, not you. So with that being said, Colored Girl's Tale started birthing a lot of pieces. Some of these pieces that got dug up don't have titles. Maybe you can help drop a comment and give some of them titles, like this one has no title. It was just based off a concept that I was sharing with someone. I'm so tired of only being the beauty you see, and now what's deep inside of me. I'm so tired of always trying to prove my worth, to validate my place on this earth. I am so tired of seeing the face that I am sold as, one so cheaply priced, yet the land I call home holds gems. I said the land I call home holds gems. You see my figure as a woman, it's something to admire. I have curves that hold dimensions that demand attention, with every slight sway made perfectly chiseled by angels. And you see Sarah Bartman. Sarah Bartman is a name to remember. A breed so rare they needed to snatch then display across foreign seas, torturing their wives with her exotic physique that they could only mimic with plastic surgery. So they mocked her. They mocked her for being the African beauty that their men lusted over. They called her a subject of scientific research, but you can call her Venus. See, I don't think you understand the burdens women face throughout history. When Nina Simone wrote For a Woman, I would only assume the poetic version would go it would go a little something like this. My skin is fair and my lips sweeter than anything you'll ever taste. An abomination to the white race nation. A seed planted while in shackles to a woman whose name was stripped from her, so they called her Sweet Thing. See, for their tongues may have produced whips and instruments of infliction, but never the art of pronunciation. A name of power and pride, a constant reminder of her royalty they tried to ransack like the tombstones of Mapungubwe Utembisile. Utembisile, an African name that she wore with pride, but the skin that matched this African soil. I'm so tired of being classed as beautiful, only because of my skin color, as if the beauty I hold within means nothing. And my soul exhausted from carrying the weight of this body around, constantly trying to prove that I am way beyond this God-given show. I'm so tired of only being the beauty you see, and now what's deep inside of me. I'm so tired of always trying to prove my worth, to validate my place on this earth. That's it has no title. It has no title, so maybe you guys could help me. You guys could help me with a title for that piece. And this one is one of the older ones of just the 2019 piece that's been collecting dust in the archives, which is entitled The Children of Africa. Africa. Oh, my dearest Africa. We still mourn the day your children were taken from you. to foreign seas to build Western dreams. You once saw your children as beautiful African kings and queens. Now all that are left are slave queens and man-bun kings. Having one-night flings and pipeline dreams, they silence their children when abused, but give them to men to be misused. Put a price on their rare ends like goats at a market just to line their own pockets, deceived into thinking that money is everything, giving and forgetting the value of the soul within. I feel you trembling as your sons take up war with one another, shedding blood over some cheap pleasure. When will they see? When will they ever see that they were your greatest treasure? Yeah, that's a 2019 piece that has never seen the light of day. And after that was, I think, the shortest piece I've ever written after that point of my life. It's like as you start writing more, you have more to say. The next 3 pieces that I'm going to be ending off with are all written within the period of the past 2 weeks. This one is entitled Silence in the Mist. Let the silence soothe my soul. Let it teach me self-control. Let me find peace. Let me find peace. Let it calm my fears within. Embrace that light that joy will bring. Let me find peace in the silence. Summer has always been my favorite season, but it's days like this and never would I envision summer to be. Thick mist plays with my vision, persuades my imagination into believing in giants flying on fire-breathing dragons. The story I once told myself was the cause of the layers of mist that had me blinded to whatever was 5 steps in front of me. For a moment, for a single moment, fear and panic gripped at each ankle as my mind tried to recognize the crack on the sidewalk. Maybe, just maybe it might help me remember which direction I was heading, left or right. But I know I'm on Finn Street. I think I know where I am. I just closed my eyes for a second and I saw old Auntie Maggie in her backyard. Then the new guy that just moved into the Adonis house pulled up into the driveway. I see the street filled with life, but the mist has everyone indoors today. Only the young people run the streets in this weather, Mrs. Finn shouts to her son. For a moment, I just wanted to disagree, but I feared the misty wall might fade away and expose me, so I kept on my journey in silence, 5 houses away. But shortly, I'm interrupted by footsteps moving swiftly towards me. In a split second, I have already seen my death and my mother's reaction when they find my body, giving her the notice of my death. 3 houses away, my anxiety tells me to run as the footsteps draw nearer, and soon shadows appear. But they look like figures. But my entire funeral service has already played within my imaginative mind. My mom always said I had an active imagination. I don't know what that is, but I'm soon brought back to reality at the sound of laughter. A familiar face appeared from the mist. It was that guy. Sheesh. It was that guy from next door. The one that's always laughing with a beer in his hand and a cracked chipped tooth. The mist, you see, the mist always took me on an adventure. It had me envisioning my death. I wondered if someone other than my family, anyone other than my family would miss me if I died. I also wondered what the afterlife looked like. But after my 10-minute walk to the store and finding my way home, I linger outside the gate just a little longer to enjoy the silence. One last time. Let the silence soothe my soul. Let it teach me self-control. Let me find peace. Let me find peace. Let it calm my fears within. And let that joy it will bring, let me find peace in the silence. That piece was written off a prompt, as well as my hometown of Eshowe. When it's summertime, it gets pretty misty that you can't see in front of you. And it always seemed to be those days when my mom would want to send me to the store. Now I have to find my way to the store and back in one piece with what she wanted, which was always a challenge as a kid. Which is why I always laugh up to now. I can still make my way around that town with my eyes closed. This is a piece entitled "The Pain I Like to Ignore." Maybe getting a little personal now. My first memory of pain is when I cut my foot with a piece of glass running through some elephant grass, trying to attempt a triple cartwheel to impress the rest of the kids on Charles Horsley Avenue. Broken glass ripped through my skin, sending shock waves up my leg and screams out of my mouth. 2 weeks later, I ran back to the streets barefoot and carefree. Yes, I didn't learn my lesson good enough that time, because healing of external wounds left me with scars to tell my kids. But it's the emotional ones I ignored. The ones I tried to self-medicate with sex, alcohol, and weed. I hoped that this might be what the doctor ordered. Promiscuous relations, alcohol-scented breath, and a joint in my right hand seemed to be the best remedy to the subdued pain. These temporary fixes contributed to the ignored pain. Standing in the shower, trying to scrub off last night's fling always seemed to be part of my routine. I drank a painkiller for the hangover. My hands twitched for another joint and my body fails to function in its sober state. So 1 hour later, I'm back to the self-medicated, emotionless version of me. And even though my mom says get over it, my heart refuses to forget the feeling of rejection first felt at the age of 8. When revelation that the man I called dad was bearing the cross of another. To him, I was his lastborn, regardless of our DNA. His love created its own room within and filled with unconditional love, but rejection became the pain I loved to ignore. It infected my emotional being with the darkness that I failed to understand, adding layers of titanium to mask the pain that I was hurting. I once wished that the pain was external, that it could be bandaged up like that cut under my foot and heal after a few weeks, but it didn't. It took 29 years and 75 days to find a cure, any cure of a pain birthed from pain. That is very personal in the sense of, yeah, poetry, that's what poetry does. And we're not going to apologize for it. Any poet is going to apologize for having a sensitive piece that's going to make people feel uncomfortable or make somebody cry. You're going to gonna have me to deal with, because I feel like there's no need for us to always have to explain or break down how we feel about something. This is our interpretation. I said what I said, as Miss Stacy always says. I said what I said. I'm not taking it back. But with all said and done, this is my last piece. This is the piece that arrived today, a few hours ago. So she's only a few hours old. So not even hours much, a couple of minutes old. Whew. This piece is entitled When They Come For Me. When they come for me, let them take this God-given shell. Let them prove that words still hold power, and my pen, bird's gale force, wins every time it kisses a paper. Let them continue to think that I am defeated. Let their small-minded, short-sighted, ignorant faces gloat over the shackles placed over my hands and feet, failing to see that my heart and mind fly free. Let them know that Charlotte McClurkin made me do it. Yep. The first Black woman in South Africa to obtain a university degree. She re-sparked the seed within me to thirst for knowledge once again. The mother of Black freedom. Freedom that my mind, freedom that freed my mind to never settle nor blend in. So I will raise my voice. I will raise my voice and tell the stories of the elders. My conscience is clear of all sin. I spoke my truth in every poem of 30 years of a delusion or deluded version of democracy. When they come for me, tell them I fed off the strength of the mother of the nation. Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. You see, the face and the force behind the anti-apartheid movement. She was detained, tortured, banned, and banished, yet raising above all of it with the words, "There is no longer anything I fear. There is nothing this government has done for me. There isn't any pain I haven't known." So when they come for me, let them be sure to understand the outcome of their actions. Because in case they forgot, wathinta bafazi, wathinta imbokodo, ask yourself if you are ready to go bare knuckle, backyard fighting with this poet, because the muzzle is off and so is my filter. I never fear death, only its timing. But when they come for me, I'm telling you, fear will take the back seat. I will stand tall regardless of my height. My voice will never be silenced, digging deeper within the shadows of the past. Tell us again what happened at Sharpeville in 1960. You see, you may try to silence me, but my pen will speak of the blood spilt in silence. It will breathe life into dormant pens, stirring up a tribe of poets unapologetically free to say and do what they want to say and be who they want to be. I know my name will be forgotten. See, but my teachings will live on. And the love I have will live on and will forever be a legacy worth passing down the line. My daughters will know that I never flinched at your hand raised above my head, nor begged for your mercy, coming from a bloodline of strong African women, always ready for a fight. So with the Bible in one hand and a pen in the other, come for me. I dare you. Thank you. That's that piece.
Oh my goodness. Y'all open up your mics and throw this lady some roses. That was absolutely unbelievable.
That was
I
fucking
love the new
dope.
piece.
Beautiful.
Yep, fucking dope.
I just that last piece, that's your barn burner piece, honey. You can retire off that one. That was it.
Yep. That was
Oh,
great,
my word.
Kimberly. Dangerously beautiful.
Thank you very much. Whew. Yeah, no,
Well,
it takes a lot to birth pieces like this.
I was about to say, might need a little, what's the commercial, a couple of Tylenol after the birth of my child. You might need a little bit more than that. and beautifully timed because we've got about a minute left. So first of all, let me say thank you so much, first of all, for being up and with us at this ungodly hour, and for an unbelievably just beautifully dangerous show. I loved every single minute of it. I said, and that last piece just, again, that sings on every single level that there is. So thank you for sharing your new material with us. For those of you who are watching, for those of you who will see us later on YouTube, if you would like to contribute to the flow, you can hit us up at poetswind@hotmail.com, on PayPal. 90% of everything that we make goes to the artists because artists need to get paid. 10% comes back to Tesoro so we can keep the lights on. So um, again, everybody open up your mics, give Kimberly some applause here. And as I tell people every single week, I am through messing with time zones. I don't know where any of you guys are, but wherever it is you are in the world, have a fantastic season of whatever part of the day it happens to be for you right now. We will be back next week with another installment of the Aperitif concerts. Y'all take it light. We'll see you around the way.
Peace.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.